And we are live. So if you are a customer experience professional looking to deliver a rock star customer experience, then you are in the right place, because today we are talking to Michel Falcon, and he's going to be talking to us about how to create a people first culture.
I am here and I'm excited to be with you, James.
Great stuff, man. So look, we may as well get straight into this. Introduce yourself, let people know who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur who builds businesses by leveraging customer experience and employee engagement and company culture strategies. Aside from owning my own businesses, I advise some companies across many different industries and on the keynote speaking circuit as well too, based in Toronto. As of the last 2 years, I was in Vancouver before that. But as you and I both know, customer experience and employee engagement knows no boundaries. So I travel quite a bit, sharing the message, and the people first culture message, which I'll dive into today, is actually the theme of the book that's coming out in October, which is, I'm not a writer or an academic, so it's taken me maybe 5 years to put it together. But that's who I am, that's what I do, and I'm super excited and happy to share some of the strategies that we use.
Great stuff, and I know we're all really looking forward to it. So before we get into some of that stuff, tell us a little bit about your journey and your progression and how you got into customer experience, and then sort of how you started your own companies as well, and tell us a little bit more about your own companies too.
Yeah, absolutely. So for listeners who are based in North America or Australia, you'll be familiar with this company. The name of the organization is 1-800-GOT-JUNK. In short, they are a company that you will pay, whether you are a homeowner or a company that just wants to get rid of clutter in your home that the typical garbage service won't take, a desk, a fridge, things like that. Two uniformed professionals show up, you pay them, they take it away, kind of like the FedEx of junk removal. I started there, I left post-secondary because, again, I'm not an academic, and I wanted to learn how to grow businesses. So the first thing I thought I would do was go to business school. Didn't do so well. So 1-800-GOT-JUNK was started in Vancouver, Canada, where I used to live. And they grew from one truck in 1989 to being worth or doing over $250 million a year in revenue. And the great thing about the story is, in my opinion, is that it's still owned by just one person. It's, in the days that we're living with, where it's celebrated to raise venture capital, this is just a true business that has profits and great revenue, great culture. They were actually voted the best workplace in all of Canada in 2006, and then number 2 in 2007. And this is a medium-sized company going against banks and larger organizations. So I started my career there, and that's where I learned that company culture and customer experiences can grow businesses organically in an organic fashion and scale. So I cut my teeth there, and it was sure I started off in the call center, recognized that the call center isn't for me. Much respect to the call center industry. It plays a huge part in within the customer experience, and but I recognized that customer experience was something that I was going to focus on. That was going to be my thing. This was in about 2008. And others were focusing on marketing and PR and sales. And I remember reading a Harvard Business Review article on customer experience management. Long story short, I said, this is going to be my thing. I recognized very quickly that you can't have a great customer experience if your employees don't like working for you. So that's when the introduction of employee engagement and customer experience are one and the same. They have to live in harmony together. So those became my 3 things. Now, was I an expert? I still don't consider myself an expert today. I don't care for the title. It's those are my three pillars: customer experience, employee engagement, company culture. I left after 6 years or 5 years. I really gave myself to my career in my 20s. This is when I was working for the company, because I aspired to keynote speak on these topics and advise and work with companies to help them improve their business in this regard. So I started what I thought was going to be the largest agency focused on customer experience that the planet ever saw. Truth be told, it never got bigger than just me. But the company started getting bigger. Verizon Wireless, $100 billion telecom company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, a multi-billion-dollar health insurance company, and many different industries. So it was great, like consulting, flying, traveling. You're the management consultant. But it got lonely really quickly because it was just myself, and traveling by yourself can get lonely. So I entertained an opportunity. My friend Brandon said, "Hey, he is in the hospitality space here in Toronto." And he said, "We're building, our next project is going to be our biggest project. It's going to be 4 floors, 16,000 square feet. We're going to need to hire 107 employees even before the doors open. Come and consult for us." So it was a 3-month engagement, and I was going to bring my customer experience, employee engagement, and company culture strategies. And we had always wanted to work together, but the opportunity didn't present itself until this opportunity. So I moved from Vancouver to Toronto. 3 months turned to 6 months. 6 months turned into, do you want to be a partner in this hospitality company? And because I missed, the reason I was lonely wasn't because you're at the bar by yourself in the hotel and traveling from airport to airport. It's because I missed being a part of a team. I miss leading. So leading a team with my partners. So now I live in Toronto. We have our flagship location with 2 more venues opening up within the next 12 months within 2 blocks of each other. And I still do the private workshops and the keynote speaking, but now I have a team of over 100 employees that depend on us to lead them, and customers that expect a lot, because I really sunk my teeth into this one location. And in retrospect, we launched 21 strategic initiatives in year 1. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done that many. I blitzed. I went fast. I blitzed, and I turned to Brandon today, and I was like, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. I was like, never again will I do that, because it was we ended up cutting a couple because it was my fault. We just sprinted, and but the ones that stuck, and 90% of them stuck, are really impacting us. Our net promoter score is. Last time I checked, it was 7 times higher than the industry average. Our employee retention is 2.5 times higher than the industry average. Revenue's high, profits are high. So it tells me that strategies are working.
So I'm guessing you can pretty much attribute that to this people-first culture.
Yeah, it's
amongst other things. But really what I want to know is, when you talk about like a people-first culture, what exactly do you mean? Which people do you mean? And what are the alternatives?
The slogan, or the definition, is quite simple. It's building a business your employees and customers will admire. Pretty straightforward, right? Something I think everybody can subscribe to. But it's so easy to say that you focus on your customers and your employees. So the question that I have now is, if you believe that you're customer and employee centric, show me. Show me the strategic initiatives you have operating behind the scenes. Show me the single points of accountability within your business who are responsible for your employee engagement and your customer experience. Show me quarter over quarter the initiatives that you continue to build. It's not just a one and done thing. Show me what you're doing with your net promoter score feedback. Do you have a complaint resolution system? And on and on and on. Because, dating back to, if you remember ads maybe in the yellow pages or in the phone book, there would always be a slogan like best customer service since 1961. It's really easy to say that, right? But it's show me. So the people first culture is actually supported by something that I call the 3P strategy. And this is the main kind of the guts of the book. And the 3Ps are purpose, process, profit, in that order. So what is the purpose of your company, your employees, and your customers? You really need to have an intimate understanding on what that is. If the and this might sound like a media headline, but if the purpose of your company is to make money, then you have a poor business. I will be the first to look at our profit and loss statements and object if they are not where they need to be. So I'm a capitalist, right? I believe in growing profitable businesses, but it's the way I go about it that is very similar to the people that you've hosted on this program before. But it's again, like everyone's going to tell you they're customer centric, employee centric, but it's like, show me that you actually are doing it and that you're not paying lip service to it.
Yeah, definitely. So when, from the work that you've done with companies and from the research that you've done, are there any sort of like standout companies that have a people first culture? If maybe they don't necessarily use that term, but are there any companies that you can draw to and give parallels to say, hey, if you're looking for somebody to not copy, but maybe model, these guys are the best?
Yeah, I'm not going to share the typical ones like the Zappos, the Starbucks. Yeah. We've talked about that, but there's two right now. And I'll share them with you, but I'm kind of regretting it even before I do because it's a big part of the book, but I will. The one that North Americans would be very familiar with is Warby Parker. So they, are you familiar?
Yeah, the glasses people.
Yeah, exactly, right? They have it dialed in. They retail, so they do online and offline, right? And there's been this retail's dead. Bad retail is dead.
Yeah.
Their retail is amazing. So I'll show you right now, actually. Warby Parker.
Nice.
These are perfectly fine. These were perfectly fine, James. But I wanted to experience their customer experience again. I just randomly went and bought another pair. And it is their customer experience that drove me to their store. So that's Warby Parker is one of my like corporate crushes right now. I'm learning a lot. I reach out to them. I go to their stores and just observe. Yeah. And then the second one is a company that is so mysterious, but I was introduced to them by a friend. The name of the company is the Beautiful People Company. They're based in Seoul, South Korea. And what makes them unique, and I want to get the numbers correct, but of the 214 employees that they have, 89 of them have physical disabilities. And they manufacture clothing for Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger. So when I read that, I was like, wow, the Beautiful People Company isn't a representation of how, it's a representation of inclusion. Regardless of your situation, you are welcome at this company to do great work. So those are two companies that I'm really studying, and I'm actually I'm so curious. I'm going down to South Korea because I'm like, I got to see what they're about. Yeah. Because I've just, me describing that, the first time that was described to me, I was like, wow, there's something interesting there. So those are two companies that I would believe have a people first culture.
Yeah, that's cool because it is easy to cite the standard ones that everybody knows about, but looking at the more like I don't want to say obscure, but the underground ones that maybe we don't hear about all the time, then that's really cool. I mean, are there any particular stories that you've heard from these companies that really show how having a people first culture affects them in a positive way?
Absolutely. So I'll talk about Warby Parker because I know them better than I do Beautiful People Company. But the story goes A customer orders a pair of glasses online, and this is in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. And the customer shows up, picks up her glasses, or goes to the store to pick up her glasses, and an alert employee who's probably been trained well and hired correctly recognizes that this customer isn't having a good day. Maybe it was her body language, her tone of voice. I'm not too certain because I wasn't there, but she says, "How's your day going?" And the customer says, "Not so well. I had my car stolen. I could really use a beer. I'm here to pick up my glasses up." So that's good. The employee does what we train our employees to do, and that's show empathy, and then carry on with servicing the customer. Customer takes your glasses, great, she leaves. That's the typical transactional experience for Warby Parker. But what happened after is what reinforces their people first culture. A couple days later, the customer gets a handwritten card that says something along the lines of, "Hi, Tess, we're so sorry to hear about your car." I've actually told this story so many times that I've memorized the card. "Hi, Tess, we're so sorry to hear about your car. Since you won't be the designated driver anytime soon, here's a round on us. Love your friends at Warby Parker. P.S. Your Durand frames look amazing." And inside that card is a $25 gift certificate to a local microbrewery, so that she can get that beer that she said that she wanted in passing, right? So why is this interesting? Look, the story is one of those feel-good stories, right? But it reinforces, and this is something that I coach my management teams on, that we've been telling our employees to listen for decades. And listening is a cheap skill set. And I actually don't think that's what we should be training our employees on. It's listen and take action on what you've heard. Your customers are having so many intimate conversations, subtle ones, and sharing information that I call customer intelligence, that your frontline employees can leverage to create an experience your customers have never seen before. So now back to the Warby Parker story. Look, I'm going to bet that that customer is never buying a pair of glasses from another company ever again. Okay, that's just a good bet that I think I would make. That customer has also told 10 of her closest family members or friends. Maybe 20% of those customers will convert. Okay, 2 more customers. That's growing organically. Warby Parker doesn't need to pay to acquire those 2 extra customers, right? They earned it through that great experience.
Yeah.
And it strip it away. It was an employee that was clearly customer centric, because you can't force people to do these things. They need to have customer centricity built in their DNA for it to be authentic and for them to do it every single day. And it took $25. So it took an operating budget, so that employee knows that there's a pool of money every single month to be able to tap into to do this. That's where companies fail. They don't allocate the budget for these things. They allocate budget for PPC and SEO and Facebook ads and all that stuff, but they don't do it for this stuff. Yeah. So furthermore, you may have heard the saying, James, customer experience is the new marketing or the new PR. Well, in this case, it truly is, because BusinessInsider.com, HuffingtonPost.com, and Mashable.com all wrote about this story. That's collectively tens of millions of potential views for Warby Parker. Ordinary companies would need to pay a PR firm tens of thousands of dollars to get in those online publications. Warby Parker did it by hiring correctly, training well, and having an operating budget. So that is a story that I love telling. There's many out there, right? There's ones from Ritz-Carlton and so forth. But the reason that I like the Warby Parker story is because everyone can afford $25. Yeah. At our flagship restaurant, Barrow, and it's not even a restaurant. It really is like a mini hotel. There's, just to put it in perspective, there's 4 different profit and loss statements. There's one for every floor. That's how complex the operation is. So on $10 million of revenue, so we did 10 million our first year, and we'll probably do 11.2 in our second year. But what would you guess, James? Our monthly budget for, we call what Warby Parker did micro customer experiences. So on $10 million revenue, What do you think our monthly budget is for micro customer experiences, for those little gestures?
It's a good question, man. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Throw a number out. I'm always curious.
Do you do it, for instance, per employee, so they get X per employee?
No, it's just a pool. It's just a pool. First come, first serve.
I'm going to say, I don't know, $1,000. I don't know.
Close. I've heard 10,000. I've heard a lot. It's $250. Now, why do I want to keep it so lean like that? Because the smaller the budget, the smaller the gesture, the greater the impact. Because if I said, guys, there's a $10,000 budget here, they would be buying bottles of Dom Perignon for guests and stuff like that. It becomes easier. So, if you've ever been to Canada, of our coffee chain called Tim Hortons. Yeah. And there's these little donuts. They're called Timbits. They're circular donuts.
And little donut hole things. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So why do I bring this up? Because a couple was having their last meal at Barrow before going to the airport. And that was the end of their vacation. One of our employees, Yasmin, asked the guests, how was your stay? And they said it was fantastic. We love Toronto. We love this neighborhood, that neighborhood. But the one thing we didn't get to try were Timbits. So Yasmin, being the customer-centric professional and alert and trained properly, follows the framework. Immediately walks to our hostess stand, our head hostess, goes to the nearest Tim Hortons, use our company credit card to buy a box of 10 or 20, which is no more than $5, comes back, we plate it, we kept it in the box actually so that they could eat it on their way to the airport. It's not all that difficult to do this stuff. The difficult part is having the foundation to actually do it, having it embedded into the DNA of the company. And look, not everybody's going to do this, right? Like, I believe we have a very customer-centric organization. And from a leadership perspective, I'm kind of that guy. Me and Brandon really share that role because, we're cut from that cloth. Our expectation is that our leadership team, our partners and our management team all live within the values of the company. They don't break them. But there's always going to be a couple individuals within the organization who really are the flag bearers. And that's another thing where companies go wrong is like, who is the designated flag bearer? There could be a couple of them, but like, who are the single points of accountability to make sure that the strategic initiatives are built quarter over quarter? And, you're starting to see the emergence of the chief customer officer within organizations, with the title, without. Who is that person within your company? And that's a question that companies got to be preparing for.
Yes, I like the idea of having a smaller budget. And of course, like traditionally, the traditional way of thinking is, well, let's put as much money into it as possible so that people can. But you are right. It would make people complacent, wouldn't it? Because they just do big gestures all the time. Whereas if it's a smaller budget, they have to be more creative with the way they do things, and a lot of times more personal too, because if you're just giving everybody a massive bottle of Grey Goose or something, it's not personal, is it? Unless specifically, but you know what I mean. So I really like that, because like the Ritz-Carlton way, like they give, it's like every person has got a limit of $2,000 to be able to fix any problem. But again, that is quite a lot of money, and don't get me wrong, maybe it's a different type of world, and of course you can't necessarily just take one idea and think it's going to work exactly the same way for you. But I really like that idea of empowering people to do it, giving them the resources to do it, but letting them know to be creative with it, to actually listen, as you said earlier, and let them do things that are personal to those. So I think that's a really good one. But it's what I want to talk to you about is to get people to do that stuff. It's got to be a combination of things, I imagine. There is the empowerment, but can you train people to do that, or do you have to have a very specific vision in mind when you're hiring people to find the right sort of people that will take that initiative, or is it a model, like a mixed model? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so It is a mixed model. First, you can't force this. You can't shove this down people's throats. They won't want to do it. It takes a certain DNA to do this authentically and want to do it. In our hiring process, so I implemented, before I joined the team, it was kind of like, do you have a pulse? You're hired, right? Where now it's actually a 7-step interview process, regardless of position, whether you're applying for a general manager, head bartender, or a dishwasher. It's a 7-step process. And we do not get to the skill set part until step 4. So the first part is the phone screen. So I'm going to do a phone interview, and I'm trying to filter people out. How do they answer their phone? What does their voicemail sound like? Are they excited to hear from us? Or are they like, sorry, what company is this? I sent my resume to 20 companies today. Sorry, what do you do? Like, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to waste my time here. So the phone screen is to filter some people out. Just by their demeanor, the way that they answer their phones and so forth. So the second is something we call the predictive index. It's a behavioral assessment that's quite popular. At least here in North America, it's quite popular. But the third step, and this will kind of answer your question, is the culture interview. We ask 2 questions for every core value that we have. And the interviewer needs to be asking themselves, is this person going to fit within our values? Then we get to skill set. I don't care if you've ever cooked a steak in your life or made a cocktail until the 4th interview. As a matter of fact, I train our managers, because I don't do a whole lot of the hiring anymore, but I train our managers, don't bring their resume to the interview until the 4th step. Because I don't want you to be enamored by past achievements or skill sets. Because in the third step, the culture interview, if you have that resume and you're like, oh, but they worked at this restaurant or this software company, you might forget that the person in front of you is kind of an asshole, right? So leave that aside. But the interview question, the last interview question that we ask in the culture interview, so which is the 3rd step, is let's role play, James. So you're interviewing, let's say, to be a bartender.
Okay.
So James, what is an indulgence that you can't live without that costs less than $20?
An indulgence that I can't live without that costs less than $20. For me, it would be probably fancy coffee.
Okay, great. From any type of producer?
Yeah, so like Nespresso. I got one of those fancy little Nespresso machines.
Got it.
There you
pods, go. With the pods, right?
Yeah, because I could just get instant coffee, and I would still, but it's a bit of an indulgence. But coffee costs less than $20. There you go.
You seem like a fancy guy, so that doesn't surprise me. So great, James. Fantastic. We push you along the interview process. James, you're hired. Great. Okay. On day 1, at your workstation or at your desk is a handwritten card signed by the owners of the company, and your Nespresso's at your desk. So, like, now, I do not want to ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So I just did it to you.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can capture, and I know this might sound fluffy, but I'm trying to capture the minds and the hearts of my employees on day 1, because, I'm trying to create an experience that they've never seen before, so that I can engage them to create an experience for my customers that they've never seen before. So that's something that, it's, again, $20. That's it. If you stay with us for a year, so in the skill set interview, this is where it becomes, organization is key, but in the skill set interview, so James, let's do this again. Okay. What is a non-work related skill set that you want to learn within the next 12 months? Or something you want to experience, or a skill set you want to learn?
Um, I would like to get better at playing drums.
Fantastic.
I play
So
guitar very well,
yeah,
uh,
so you want to
play,
give it
but I
fantastic.
don't play drums very well.
So I would, so at your 1 year anniversary, we would find a drum teacher, if that's the right word,
Sure.
to host private lessons for you on the third floor of our venue, because that's the event space. We'll do it there. I've heard learn to speak Italian. I've heard I want to learn how to salsa dance. I want to blah, 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 blah. So, there's another experience that they've never seen before. So we document that during the interview process. But, that's a long-winded description of us getting to intimately learn about the candidate in front of us, because from there I can take a step back, including my management team, and just let people do good work. Right? It's as long as you don't burn the building down, I'm good. Like, if you make a mistake, cool. I bet you I'm going to make 5 this week. Right?
Yeah.
And I actually train my management team. 70% of your time is on the employee side of things. 30% of your time is on the customer side. Because if you can figure out the employee part, they'll take care of the customer stuff on their own. You have to make sure that the guardrails are in place.
Yeah.
For example, our NPS score dropped by like 5 points in a week, which is absurd or like unheard of. And I was like, there's something here. So I tapped Steve Barrett, our general manager. I said, Steve, get on it. Right. So you're going to have to shift gears. Right. But yeah, it's look, the stuff isn't all that difficult. Like it really isn't. It's to create a people first culture. That is, it's just, we're focused on the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
We're so focused on customer acquisition that we neglect retention. We're so focused on getting butts in the seats that we forget quality. Look, that 7-step process, I'm not trying to be efficient when I'm hiring. I'm trying to be diligent.
Yeah.
And often people are like, Michel, that sounds exhausting. That sounds like it takes forever. You know what takes forever? Having low employee retention. When you're having to do this month over month, like, I like to front load the work. It's not difficult. It is a bit labor intensive, but if it's worth having, you're going to put the work forth. But you put the work for it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm sure there's lots of people that are going to be watching this that are going to want to know more and more about that, and I'd really like to talk about it more and more now. But there's other stuff I want to get onto as well. So, what I will ask is the 7-step process going to be explained in your book?
Yes.
Sweet. All right. Okay. Put me on the list.
All right.
Question is, can you be customer centric and employee centric at the same time? Is that possible?
Yeah. One comes before the other. It really does. The employee comes first, the culture, the employee comes first, and then the customer experience comes soon after that. Often it's just organically done. Like, I know every single night that we have a team of customer-centric professionals that is taking care of our customers for us. I think it was Herb Kelleher, the former co-founder of Southwest Airlines, that famously said, take care of the employees, they take care of the customers, they take care of the profits. It's true. It's totally true. Our profit margins are higher than the industry average based on our research. Look, it's not just having a people first culture. Our net promoter score, top 3 promoter reasons, and we're at last time I checked was 76. In order, it's the reason that we have promoters is food. They love our food, our level of customer service, and ambiance. So it's not just one thing, right? Like, if I had great service but crappy food, don't think I would have that good of a business. But it's often that people just neglect the people pillar, if you will, which is what causes disruption, right? Like, for me, I'm looking at other industries right now, saying, when when I'm looking into another industry, I'm going to be looking for industries that haven't invented, who have poor customer experience or poor employee engagement. I'm going to go out and target those industries and try to disrupt them in some way.
Yeah. But I agree with you on that one. It's a weird situation because a lot of people still have got an industrial age mindset where most companies back in the day, they were really focused on, well, a production line, and it was about machines making things. And so, of course, you get this sort of process mindset and an industrial age mindset where the people didn't matter. The people just came in, they did the work, they went home. But of course, there's been a massive shift into more service environments. And of course, the only real way you can deliver service is with people. So it's that massive shift. And I think a lot of people haven't caught up. They're still approaching like people problems with an industrial age mindset. And one thing I've heard you talk about is this idea of like one team and one vision. Okay, so can you explain that to me a little bit more? Like, what is it and why is it so important?
Yeah, it's really, I first heard it through Gary Vaynerchuk, the digital marketer, of having like a North Star. So for us, our North Star is our mission and our values. And I know there's some people that may be watching this or just think like, that's all fluffy stuff. And I wouldn't recommend that anybody has or develops a mission or core values unless you're actually going to live and breathe it, hire and fire according to it, and so forth. That's what helps us have one team, one goal. And our mission statement, the first sentence is to create seamless experiences for our guests. It goes on from there, but it's that one sentence. Our values are aligned with how we want to treat each other and how we want to treat our guests. Mm-hmm. So much so that you can't escape these things. Like we borrowed this idea from Starbucks. Our core values and the first sentence of our mission statement are stitched on the inside of our aprons and our chef's jackets. So you see it every day. It's on the bottom of your paychecks. It is deckled in the employee bathrooms, in the employee room or team room. It is actually written on the chalkboards within our main dining room subtly. So it really is like, it goes back to kind of the purpose, right? What is the purpose of the company? It's to create seamless experiences for our guests. The purpose for me as an entrepreneur, and this helps me align with the one team, one goal, is to make people feel safe. I want my customers to feel safe when they come dine, and not like somebody's going to come in there and shoot up the place. Like, I mean, safe, like I'm going to come and I have confidence that my money, I'm going to get value, right? That type of safe, where they have consumer confidence in us. And I want my employees to feel safe as well too. Again, this isn't a physical thing. It's kind of just more of a mental thing where they recognize that, you know what, they have a great leadership team. They invest in me. We spend over $100,000 a year just in employee training and development, not traditional training, but like learning and development sessions every quarter. This coming Sunday, for the vegans watching this or vegetarians, they aren't going to like this, but this coming Sunday, we sent out a poll and our employees, over 100 of them, said, we want to learn how to butcher a pig. So we're like, okay, let's do that. The quarter before that, we were teaching them how to properly network and find a mentor. So we have the mission and the culture that helps us develop this one team and one goal, and we support it with strategic initiatives each and every quarter to reinforce the message to our team that, hey, we are one team. And some people might call it fluffy, but we do consider each other a family. Like Christina Perahar, her dog had to have a $6,000 eye surgery. We went, our general manager went to our closed Facebook group for our company and said, hey guys, let's try to raise some money to help Christina. In one day, we raised $6,000 so that Christina doesn't have to live with that debt. And, we're not asking what's the ROI of that, right? Like, I'm not asking what's the ROI of, because getting the pigs to butcher them costs time and money. But for me, it's going back to the people first culture. Like, Let me put it this way. So later this week, I need to go pick up my friend from the airport. Okay, he's visiting me. I said I'm going to go pick him up. When I'm driving there, I'm not thinking, what is the ROI of picking up Mark Burrows from the airport? I just know I want him in my life for the next till I'm in the ground, right? That's just something I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Why do we have that ROI mentality into business? Like, sure, I get, like, I'm the first to say you got to watch your bottom line with everything that you spend. You got to forecast, you got to budget, you got to do all that. But like, there's bets that I'm going to make where I can't prove the ROI. I can't say in 12 months this is going to do X to our business. But if we believe in investing in people, then we'll do it. And we always do. Like that we budget $500 per employee for their 1-year gift. It's over $50,000 a year. First time I brought that up to my partners, they looked at me like I had 5 eyeballs. But I said, guys, we'll spend more on employee retention, or we'll spend more because of low employee retention unless we do these things.
Yeah, I agree. And it does come down to that. If you look after your employees, in return, your employees will look after your customers, and then in return, your customers will look after the profits. So it's a good way to think about it. And not enough companies do think that way. It is all about the money. They focus a lot of the time on cost-cutting activities, which in the end negatively affect the customer experience, which then negatively affect their revenues, which then cause them to do more cost-cutting activities. And it's just the wrong focus can take you down a really bad path.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's the difference between short-term and long-term thinking, right? Like, it goes back to that analogy I gave you of picking up my friends from the airport. It's just the short-term thinkers can be like, what's your ROI? What's your ROI? What's your other ROI? And sure, it's nice to have that person in the room making sure that you don't spend wildly. But, I've trained myself to think long-term. I plan to be in business for decades. So I'm willing to make bets that where the ROI might not show up in 12 months. And there are times where we've had to cost cut. We, for example, debated cutting staff meal. That costs us tens of thousands of dollars a year. What that is we will make a staff meal before service starts so our employees can eat. But that's cost of goods sold, right? That costs us money. So there's some things that we've had to take away from our employee engagement and our culture because we need to make a profit, right? So we're not scared to make those bets or make those cuts, but we try everything we can not to.
Yeah, but it's not your sole focus.
No, definitely not.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's something I've heard you speak about before as well, about micro customer experiences. Talk to me about those a little bit.
Yeah, so a micro customer experience is a small, subtle, and memorable gesture that you'll do for your customers that'll resonate with them for years. My argument is that they could outperform any traditional advertising campaign. The Warby Parker example, right? $25 and a great employee created tens of thousands of dollars of free media for them. So we have that budget every single month where our employees are free to tap into that budget and create experiences for our customers. So within your customer journey, and I know you spoke to Annette France about customer journey mapping, and she's great, by the way. Within the customer journey, your customers are expecting great service or interactions during the macro touch points. So for example, for me in hospitality, it's when somebody calls for a reservation, when their food's brought to the table. Those are macro interactions. They expect you to be good, right? And you must. But where I like to play is just in that bottom layer, those little micro interactions that your customers don't expect you to be delivering great experiences to. And more often than not, your competitors aren't focused there. They're focused on the macro. So it's twofold. So what are some other micro interactions that that comes back to just experience design, going through your customer journey, outlining all of your customer journey, outlining your entire customer journey map, outlining the macro and the micro interactions, and asking yourself, what can we do during these micro interactions? So, for example, Laura Grant, she's our guest relations manager, and every reservation goes through her and her team. But what we've trained them to do is, again, listen to your customers, ask some probing questions so that you can gather some customer intelligence. For example, let's say I was a guest and I happened to call in to book a reservation, and by way of conversation, I said I was a Vancouver Canucks fan, hockey team. What can we do with that information? Maybe we have something waiting for them at the table before the reservation that has a piece of memorabilia, something affordable, something waiting on their table. Or maybe we have these cocktails where there's a stencil that you spray and then it appears on the cocktail. Maybe it's the logo of Vancouver Canucks or something like that, right? Those are the micro things that really drive word of mouth.
It's cool, and it's almost things that you can't necessarily build the actions that get taken into your processes, but it's almost building in the places where people can take action. So it's like saying, there are these points where you can take action. I'm not saying what action to take. I'm just saying you can take action, and I think it's a good thing, because again, traditional standardized mindsets would say, well, this is the exact thing you have to do in this situation every single time. Whereas that's impossible to do because you'd say, okay, if a person is, like a fan of Colorado Avalanche, then this is the way you deal with them. But if somebody is a fan of the Orlando Solar Bears, then you've got to do it this way. You can't do that. You've got to have those people, and you've got to have that empowerment that know when it's appropriate to take action, but not tell them what action to take. So I really like that. I think it's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, just giving them freedom. Like Netflix, one of their core values is employee freedom. Like, look, I don't care if somebody makes a mistake. I don't. Right? Was your heart in the right place? Yes, that's enough for me. Right? Did you burn the place down? No. Okay, thank you. But it's building the framework, right? Or the standard operating procedure, if you want to get fancy. Just build the framework, have guardrails in place, and let them live within there. Put them in, here's the sandbox, play in the sandbox, right? Just don't step outside of the sandbox.
Well, I think like a lot of companies, the way they kind of do that is with their values, their core values. They use their core values as those guidelines. And as long as what people do, if they get asked about it and they can explain, well, I did it because it aligns with one of these core values, then they go, all right, fine, yeah, no problem. I think it's a good way to do it. It's giving them that freedom. And of course, you're going to much prefer to stay with a company that gives you that freedom to act like that than a company that micromanages everything you do. But what I want to get to now is talking about we spoke about the micro customer experiences. I've also heard you talk about micro strategies. Are they linked or are they different things? What's the deal with those?
They're pretty much the same thing. It goes back to what I had said on the 21 initiatives that we had deployed. Some of them are bigger strategies like Net Promoter Score, and some of them are smaller, like the micro customer experience strategy. But what I see companies, where I see them failing, is that every quarter they don't have an operational plan. They may for marketing or biz dev or the typical departments, if you will. But what are you doing to reinforce your culture, your customer experience, and your employee engagement? My rule of thumb is that every quarter we will deploy 3 strategic initiatives. So, for example, this coming quarter, we're doing a customer journey mapping workshop. I withheld launching this until after year 1, just because it is quite comprehensive. So I said, you know what, we got to do the smaller things well, and then let's do that. So that's one. The next is employee surveys, anonymous employee surveys. So that's another thing that we're going to deploy. And the third, I'm still finalizing the third, but just having these macro and micro strategies working within the business, so that, if you don't win on the macro, at least the micro can kind of uphold you for a bit, right? Until you fix what's wrong with the macro. I just like to have all my bases covered, right? It's making sure that everything's running operationally, running well, and then parachute down when something needs to be fixed, like our NPS score drop. I know why, but I go to my GM and said, why is this happening, right? And allow them to do kind of the work so that they can get the experience. But that's kind of what I mean by the micro strategies.
Cool. So another thing I've heard you talking about is this idea of owning the dinner table.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I followed the thing, so I know what it's about, and I think it's wicked. But of course, maybe some of the people watching won't have heard about this. Tell them a little bit about that.
Yeah, it came to me like 30 days ago, like not too long ago. I want to create such memorable experiences for my customers and employees that they go home and they share these experiences with their loved ones, their friends, their colleagues at the dinner table. Like the water cooler conversations that used to happen, right? That expression. This is just something that kind of came to me, and I'm like, I want to own the dinner table. And that's what it is, right? Like, create experiences for your employees and your customers that are worth sharing. And from there, your business will grow organically. Like, that's what I'm obsessed about, James, when it comes to building businesses. I want to grow organically. Our marketing budget is not very big. Like, we have an in-house marketing manager and an in-house videographer, because I'm doubling down on video marketing. But in comparison to what we spend on owning the dinner table, it pales in comparison. We're really good marketers. I'm very confident in my team, but it's not what I want to be our key pillar. It has to be a part of the mix, but I want to own the dinner table by other people sharing our stories, whether it's they're a great employer or they're a great place to spend your money. And growing organically through referrals and repeat customers, it's the best way to grow, because it's the most profitable way to grow. Because like I shared with you, if I deliver a great experience to you, James, and you share that with 5 friends and 2 of them come, those are highly profitable customers to me. I didn't have to spend Facebook dollars on Facebook to acquire them, right?
Definitely. And it's so I imagine there's in order to sort of do all of this stuff that you're talking about, communication's got to be key. What are the main things that you need to be communicating with your employees, like, on a regular basis?
Yeah, so it goes back to our core values. We host something called GS and R's, so goal setting and review. They're weekly meetings that management has with their direct employees. And I'll use Jordan Lopez. He's our marketing manager, and he reports into me. So I own people, so customer experience, employee engagement, and I own brand too. So PR and marketing fall under my plate. So Jordan will host every week. We'll host a GSNR, and amongst other things, we're talking about his metrics, right? Like, how much traffic did you drop to the website this week and so forth. But another thing that I'm evaluating on him on is how is Jordan living within our 5 core values? And I'll audit him every week, and I'm gonna say, Jordan, I need you to live within the ownership core value more. And here's some examples of how you haven't and how you can. So that's how we're making sure that, and it goes back to the one goal, one team, one goal. Just making sure that everybody's aligned. And these meetings are up to an hour. It's just one-on-one, and it's led by the person. So I don't lead the meeting. I'm the leader, but I don't lead the meeting. They lead the meeting and they audit themselves because it allows for self-reflection and it helps with self-awareness too.
That's cool. I mean, so I'm not so. I've worked in lots of different industries and with lots of different companies, but not so much in the whole hospitality area. And I imagine there's probably quite a lot of young people that work with you, like the millennial types. Which I think technically I'm a millennial, but I don't really understand when you have to have been born to. But anyway, like, is there a different way that you have to engage with those people rather than like just normal people?
Yeah, so I'm conflicted by this topic because there's the reputation. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1985, and I think it's 1980 to 1992 or something like that. But
well, there you go. I'm a millennial. Then that's
yeah. So the reputation of they're lazy, they're entitled. Like, I'm lazy. Okay. I it really, I do believe that you strip it all away, whether somebody's 60 or 16, it goes back to that 3P strategy. Understand their purpose and serve them according to that. So, for example, I'll use Jordan Lopez as an example. When we're interviewing, we're trying to understand what is their purpose. So Jordan told us that within 3 to 5 years, he wants to start a digital marketing company of his own. So he wants to be an entrepreneur. Great. Some people might be like, oh, don't hire that person. They're going to leave you. Okay, well, so is a lot of things. My argument to that is your dog is going to die. Knowing that information, would you stop taking it for walks? Don't think so, right? So again, it goes back to having the same mentality of the relationships in your personal life as you do in your business life. So Jordan wants to be a digital marketer. That's his purpose. He wants to own a digital marketing agency. That's his purpose. It's now, as his leader, I have to get him there. So I manage according to purpose. And that's just leadership. It's not all that difficult. Stop being so self-serving. I have goals of my own, and I'm going to achieve them by helping my team achieve their goals first.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the short-term, long-term thinking, right? Like, I know Jordan's got my back. Like, I know that. He coincidentally, we live in the same neighborhood, and he's got my back work-wise and personal-wise. Like, when I'm sick, he'll be like, hey, do you want me to go get you some medicine? Like, that's just the relationship that we have, right? And I know that Jordan one day is going to give his notice. He will. And I want him to. I want him to leave because it's a great representation of our company where people can come and use it as a springboard to success with or without the company. So back to your question, do you need to manage according to demographic, to age demographic? I'm not 100% sold on it. My mom has worked for Air Canada, an airline, the biggest airline in Canada, for 30 years. Her purpose was and she's never been promoted, not because she's not a good employee, but because her purpose is family. If she got promoted, there's more responsibility. She couldn't take care of me and my sister, right? So Air Canada, I hope, was serving her in that way, right? So it's just manage according to purpose. Don't manage according to age.
Yeah. It almost comes down to that idea that Disney talk about quite a lot, like caring beyond the job, not just caring about people because they work for you. But if you do want to create that family environment, you need to care beyond the job. And if they are sick, you get them medicine. If they have dreams, you help them achieve them. And that's the sort of thing that does really build a family. And of course, a family are going to deliver a much better customer experience than just a bunch of people working together. So that's, yeah. So look, I want to know a little bit more about this book. Have you got a title for the book yet?
Yeah, the working title right now is People First Culture, Building Companies of Purpose, Process, and Profit. I'm not in love with it. I'm still going back and forth with the publisher, but People First Culture will definitely be in the title. What the sub headline will be, I'm not
Of
too sure.
some sorts, yeah. I think that's a good name because it tells you really what it is the book's going to be about. Can you go into a little bit more detail about the structure of the book and the format of the book and what people can get from that book?
Yeah, so it is broken down into three sections, and each section will have about 3 to 4 chapters, and it is broken down by the purpose, the process, the profit. And my goal wasn't just to be inspirational or motivational. It was to be tactical, right? I want people to read this book and be like, it's a book, but it's also kind of like a playbook. Like I could read this book and interview exactly like Michelle does. So it's a bit of I'm going to share some stories, but then I'm going to share some strategies as well too. And it was kind of self-serving, and in terms of how I built it, because I like books like that, right? I like books that I can learn from and actually apply, rather than you know just watch YouTube videos and be inspired or whatever the case is. So the book will share stories from recognizable companies and ones that you may not be familiar with, like the Beautiful People Company. It'll share my interview processes, my onboarding processes, how we measure profit. So not just by the economics, but how do you profit from how does the employee profit? How does the brand profit? So it's been many, many years in the making, but thankfully I have been partnered up with a publisher that's really supported me, because I can't write worth anything. So that's why I stick to videos. I can talk, but I can't write.
Yeah, that's I'm sort of in the same boat with that. Interesting. I'll tell you about this afterwards, but I accidentally wrote a book last week.
Did you?
Yeah, which I'll share that with you a little bit more later.
Yeah. How do you accidentally do that?
Yeah. And the thing is, so what I've published kind of 2.5 books now, and I never wanted to write books. It was never anything I ever wanted to do. What I wanted to do was write music. That was what I wanted to do. I never wanted to write books. Books are boring, but I sort of got forced to in the end of the day. But it's it is a good way to get a lot of ideas out of your head down on paper and allow other people to get access to them too, because of course, like you'll know, going around and working with different companies, there is only one of you, and unless you do build that giant company underneath you, there's only so many people you can actually work with and help. So the books is a really great way of helping as many people as possible, like get on board with this mindset and change. So it's welcome to the authors club. I hope you enjoy it. But right, so what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? I imagine there's going to be lots of people who want to talk to you more about this. What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, through social media, to be honest, it's just at Michel Falcon, Michel, and then Falcon like the bird, or email Michel@michelfalcon.com. Those are two of the best ways. The website is also michelfalcon.com, so it's all pretty consistent.
Sweet. And guys, if you are watching, look at the links. I've put them all down there for you, so you can just click on whatever. Look, I want to say a massive thank you to Michel for being with us today. Amazing stuff we've spoken about. Really, really interesting. And I'm sure you guys are itching to go away and start implementing some of this stuff right away. What I will say is, if you want to download 3 free chapters of my new book, Put Your Customer Second, there is a little link below talking about people like Disney, like Lego, like Ritz-Carlton, Southwest Airlines, Virgin. Loads of cool people in there. Not Warby Parker. Maybe I'll put that in the final copy. Who knows? But yeah, if you want to get 3 free chapters of that, click on the link below. But until next time, guys, keep on delivering that rockstar customer experience.